Hey guys, Bryan here from Liquid Concepts. So today we're going to talk a little bit about Activator Gun Setup. And so we've already done a quick little video on how to spray the activator, but figure we want to do a more in-depth video on setting up the gun for the activator. And so of course, if you're using aerosols, there's not really much to set up. It's more or less just push the knob down and it sprays it out, and then you pretty much just do your passes. So this is going to be more for definitely the paint guns that you're using. Now again, every paint gun is different, so there are going to be some times where the settings on mine are going to be a little bit different than yours, and that's perfectly fine. But you're going to have to do a little bit of testing and see what's going to work best with your situation, your gun, and the way that you're spraying your activator. So this is kind of how the way that we spray it, and so we figured we'd go ahead and shoot a quick little video and show you guys how to set it up, so then that way you know how to get everything dialed in, so then that way you can get a lot better results whenever you're spraying your activator on the film. So first thing is the gun itself. This is actually a SATA. It is a 100 BF. It's an it's an HVLP gun. And so they do make an RP version, and then they also make an HVLP version. Most of the time that's not really super critical. You can still use either one. This one is the HVLP. Now this one from SATA is actually considered a primer gun, but it actually works really well for the activator. Now before you go out and start looking that up and buying it, this gun is quite expensive, and so you know, we feel like it was definitely well worth it. But we also paid a premium of $300 to $400 back in the day, even whenever we bought it ourselves. So there are definitely a lot of cheaper guns out there, and so you definitely just want to do your research, so then that way you can try to find a gun that best suits in your budget and in your needs. So one thing on that is to make sure that you have a full-size gun. You don't want a spot repair gun. You don't want a small gun. You definitely want a full-size gun with a full-size tip and head on it, so then that way you get as big of a fan as possible. So pretty much this gun is going to be just like any of the others. You've got your fluid adjustment here, you've got your air adjustment, and then you've also got a fan adjustment over here on this side. So normally on this one right here, we never mess with the fan, so it makes it really nice. But we will adjust the fluid and adjust the air depending on the way that we spray. Now the one thing to kind of keep in mind on paint guns is that you definitely get what you pay for. And so a lot of the times you see tons of people going out and they're using Harbor Freight guns, and I'm not saying that they're bad, but my run-ins with them is I have not been overly impressed, mainly because the seals that are in them, they tend to leak quite a bit, as well as with the activator, you keep the activator in the gun pretty much the entire time. It's not like paint where you spray it and then you clean it out and then the gun sits there. With the activator, you'll actually keep this in the gun the entire time. So definitely want to make sure that you get a good quality gun, so then that way the seals and everything in it, they don't start deteriorating too quickly because the activator is in the gun 100% of the time. That's what's nice about having a more higher end gun like a SATA, Iwata, DeVilbiss. Any of those like that are really good guns to start out with. And they also have beginner level guns, cheaper guns, and they also have the higher end guns as well. So you can definitely take your pick, but definitely be cautious on that whenever you're selecting your gun for the actual spraying of the activator. So let's go ahead and let's get started with getting this thing set up and showing you guys exactly what you need to do to set up a gun that's similar to this, so then that way you can get your activator to spray exactly the way that you want. So let's go over here to the tank and let's get started. Okay, so first thing is, of course, you need to hook it up to the air, and so now we have air. Now the one thing that you'll notice is, especially in all of my videos, is that as I'm spraying my activator onto the actual film, I'm very close to it. I'm probably about 6 to 8 inches above the water. Now, the biggest thing to remember is that with the activator, we try to do it more in one pass, and you'll see that quite a bit, that where literally we just do one pass and then we're good to go, and that's what we try to stay with. Once you start getting into 2 and 3 passes, you more run the risk of the film wanting to move, because you're literally spraying air onto the water, and then of course the water is moving around, which means the film can move around. So that's why we try to do everything in one pass, so then that way it helps eliminate that. So getting the gun set up. So the first thing is, of course, we can't have a whole bunch of air blowing in right here, because inevitably it's just going to sit there and ripple way too much, and it's not going to work. Now on the flip side of that, you don't want to have a little amount of air like this right here and then be way up here. The main reason is because you're not going to get any of that activator way up here to come down and land onto the film. So you definitely want to make sure that you're within a certain distance. And normally what we found is around 6 to 8 inches is a pretty good distance to keep it away from the film. And so on the gun itself, we normally have it set to about 8 to 12 PSI. So that will vary, of course, depending on the way that your gun is set up. Some guns run a little bit higher, some guns can take it a little bit lower and still get a good atomization. And so that's going to be the biggest thing, is that as you're spraying your air like this right here and you pull the trigger back all the way, you still want to get a really fine mist, and you still want to get a good atomization through the gun. So you can see how if I've got it right here and I pull that back, I've got a really nice smooth mist and fan going all the way out. Now of course, as I was saying before, I have our fan adjustment all the way out, so then that way we get as big of a fan as possible. And so that's why using a bigger gun like this right here and not a spot repair gun is really good, because then you can get a 10 to a 12 inch fan instead of an 8 or 10 inch fan. So definitely want to do that. So as we're spraying, we want to make sure that whenever we move across the water like this, we're just barely moving that water. And so you can see how I'm moving back and forth, and the water, yes, it is rippling just a little bit, but it's not rippling like this right here. And you can see how more turbulent this is right here than it was whenever I first sprayed it. And so that's where adjusting that air pressure and keeping that same distance above the water is really critical in getting the gun set up correctly to spray the activator. And so the next thing is now that we've got our activator air pressure on the gun set up correctly, now we need to adjust the fluid. And so of course the fluid is going to be exactly parallel with the tip of it. And so pretty much, of course, if you unscrew it and you back it out more, then you can pull the trigger back to let more fluid out. If you screw it in, then it won't let out as much fluid. And so a lot of people, you'll probably hear, oh, well, if you do 2 turns out and then, so screw it all the way in until it bottoms out and then pull it 2 turns back or 3 turns or whatever, it's set up perfectly. And that's not the case. You want to set it up to the way that you spray. And so everybody's going to spray a little bit differently. They're going to spray faster or they're going to spray slower like that. And so the guy that's spraying faster, like this right here, is going to have his fluid adjustment out a lot more than the guy that is spraying like this right here, and he's going a lot slower. Now, you can go fast, you can go slow. That's not the issue. The issue is that you've got to get a smooth, even amount of activator applied onto the film. And so that's going to take a little bit of adjustment from yourself in dialing that in, because you'll be able to see, okay, it wasn't enough activator, I need a little bit more, let's open this out just a little bit more. Or, hey, that was too much, the part was, the film was running off the part, I got way too much activator on it, okay, let's back it back down, screw this back in. So definitely want to try to adjust that. Now, a good starting point would definitely be a couple of turns out and see how it sprays. If it doesn't put out enough, then back it out a little bit more. And so you definitely want to adjust that depending on how you spray the film, because again, if you're spraying pass like this, you definitely want to make sure that this is far enough out to account for the speed that you're going across. And some activators will take less to activate. Some activators will take more of the material to activate the film. So you're also going to have to definitely check that out on, as you're spraying it more and more, you'll be able to see, okay, is it under activated all the time? Is it over activated? What do you need to do? And then that way you can slowly dial this in, whether it's turning it in or turning it out, so then that way you can get the best results possible. And so, of course, the other thing is your air horns. It's pretty simple, pretty standard on this. Normally we keep them going left and right because we are spraying left and right, but you could, if you wanted to, take this and turn these air horns like this right here and actually spray the activator just like this. A lot of people probably don't feel very comfortable with that, and that's perfectly fine, but that is another option that you can do if you do have a long piece of film like this and you wanted to spray it like that. So as far as the gun setup goes, you definitely want to try to make sure that you get that dialed in. Now, starting out, I would say grab a whole bunch of cheaper film and just throw it on the water and test it. Throw it on the water and test it, because inevitably you're going to have to test that to make sure that you get the right amount of activator on the film and you get the gun dialed in to the way that you spray. So then that way, whenever you go to start doing jobs and production and things like that, you know exactly how fast you need to go. You know exactly how far this fluid adjustment needs to be backed out or pushed in, and then you also know what your air adjustment needs to be. So then that way, as I was saying before, you can be this high above the water, about that 6 to 8 inch ratio, and that way you just get a very light movement of water across here, and you still get a good atomization as well as a good activation across the entire film. So hopefully this has really helped you out. If you haven't already, definitely hit the subscribe button. We'd love to have you subscribe to our weekly tips and tricks. And also, if you like the video, definitely give us a thumbs up. We'd love to see that as well. As well as, if you have any questions or comments, definitely leave them below. We'd love to hear from you on anything hydrographics related, or also if you have any other questions about setting up the gun in general or anything like that, definitely let us know below. We'll try to get back with you so that way we can get your questions answered. I'm Bryan from Liquid Concepts, and this is how we customize your world. We'll see you guys next time.